Welcome to Tales with Granny. Before I begin, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Because this story changed everything about who I am. My name is Rose, and I still remember the day my world ended. It was Thursday, October 4th. I had just come home from the hospital, weak, pale, barely breathing, but alive. The doctors had said I needed rest, but I wanted to surprise my husband, Terrace. I thought he would be happy to see me standing at the door, smiling, holding a small bouquet of flowers and my hospital discharge papers. I didn't tell anyone I was coming home early, not even my sister Denise, who had been visiting me during my stay. I wanted to see the joy on Terrace's face when he saw me. I remember humming softly, pushing the door open, thinking I'd walk into a quiet living room and find him there waiting for me. But instead I walked into hell. The first thing I heard was laughter, muffled, soft, but familiar. Then I heard my bedroom door creak open. I walked closer, still holding the flowers, my weak body trembling from exhaustion. And that's when I saw it. Terrace and Denise, my husband, my sister, together in our bed. For a second the world stopped spinning. My knees gave way, my breath caught, and everything inside me went silent. I remember the sound of the flowers hitting the floor, petals scattering like little pieces of my heart. My pulse roared in my ears, and I thought maybe this was another fever dream. Maybe I hadn't really left the hospital. But then Terrace turned around, eyes wide, guilt all over his face. Denise froze like she'd seen a ghost. And maybe she had. "Rose," he started, but I couldn't hear him. My brain refused to process any sound. My body was shaking so badly that I had to grab the doorframe to stay upright. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared at them, at the two people I loved more than anything in the world, until the silence between us became unbearable. Then I turned around, walked out, and closed the door. Outside, the cold air hit my face like a slap. I drove away, tears blurring my vision, until the city lights disappeared behind me. I don't remember where I went that night. All I remember is the sound of my own heart breaking over and over again. The next morning, I filed for divorce. My family didn't believe me. They called me emotional, dramatic, said I was overreacting. They defended Terrace. They pitied Denise. But no one pitied me. So I walked away from all of them. From the lies, the pain, the betrayal. That was 5 years ago, and I thought I had buried that part of my life forever. Until the day Terrace and Denise showed up at my door. When I opened the door that morning, my heart nearly stopped. Standing there, after 5 long years, were the two faces I'd promised myself I'd never see again. Terrace and Denise. For a moment, I thought it was some cruel dream. I blinked, but they didn't vanish. My body froze, my fingers tightening on the doorknob. Terrace looked older, thinner, like life had finally caught up with him. Denise, on the other hand, looked fragile, pale, exhausted, and nervous. I didn't say a word. I just stared. The silence stretched between us until Terrace spoke first. "Rose, please," he began, his voice low, desperate. "We wouldn't be here if it wasn't serious." I laughed bitterly. "Serious? You're standing on the doorstep of the woman you destroyed. And now you want my sympathy?" Denise's eyes welled up. "Rose, please just listen. I know what we did was unforgivable, but I'm sick. I really am. I need surgery. It's expensive and—" I cut her off, my tone sharp. "So you thought I'd pay for it? After what you two did to me?" She looked down, trembling. "You're the only one left who can help us. Mom and Dad don't talk to us anymore. Everyone turned away after what happened. We have no one." For a second, I wanted to slam the door in their faces. My pride screamed no, but something in me, maybe old pain, maybe curiosity, made me pause. I folded my arms. "You have 5 minutes, talk." Terrace cleared his throat, avoiding my eyes. "We tried everything," he said. "We sold the house, the car. I've been doing odd jobs, but it's not enough. Denise needs surgery, and the doctors say she doesn't have much time." His voice cracked when he said that. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "How much money?" I asked quietly. 80,000, Terrace answered. That's what the hospital quoted. "We'll pay you back, I swear." The way he said it made me laugh out loud. "You? Pay me back? You couldn't even pay me loyalty when I gave you love." He flinched, his jaw tightening, but he didn't argue. Denise started crying softly, covering her face with her hands. I sighed, then said, "Come back tomorrow morning. I'll decide then." They left, heads bowed, thanking me like beggars. When I closed the door, my chest felt tight, not from pity, but from something else. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing their faces. The pain, the guilt, but also something else. Something off. What if this was another lie? Another trick? At 2 a.m. I made a decision. If fate had brought them back to my doorstep, it wasn't for forgiveness. It was for closure. Maybe this was my chance. Not to heal, but to finally take control. I whispered to myself before falling asleep. Tomorrow the game begins. The next morning came slowly. I barely slept, but I was calm. For the first time in years, I felt something powerful stirring inside me. Control. The same control they stole from me the day I found them together. At exactly 9 a.m., there was a knock on the door. I already knew who it was. When I opened it, Terrace and Denise stood there again. Their faces full of cautious hope. I forced a gentle smile. "Come in," I said softly. "We need to talk." They stepped inside slowly, looking around my home. It wasn't grand, but it was mine. Every corner of it carried my pain, my growth, my healing. And now, it would carry my revenge. "I thought about what you said," I began, walking toward the table. "About Denise's condition. And the money." Denise's eyes lit up. "You'll help us?" she asked, almost whispering. "Yes," I said calmly. "I'll help. But there are conditions." Terrace frowned. "Conditions?" "Yes," I replied. "If I'm giving you $80,000, I want to know exactly who I'm helping. You'll stay here, both of you, for 1 week. Until the payment clears, I want to see you, talk to you, and make sure everything is real." Terrace looked unsure. "Stay here? In your house?" I smiled faintly. "Is that a problem, Terrace? After everything, I thought you'd be comfortable here." His face reddened. Denise squeezed his arm nervously. "No, it's fine. I'd be grateful to stay." "Good," I said, my voice cool and steady. "Then it's settled. You'll move in today." They looked relieved and clueless. They had no idea they'd just stepped into the lion's den. While they went to fetch their things, I called a friend of mine, a nurse at the same hospital Denise claimed to be treated at. I gave her the name, the supposed diagnosis, the doctor's name. When she called me back an hour later, her words made my blood run cold. "There's no record of a Denise under that doctor's care," she said. "No scheduled surgery, no recent admission, nothing." I thanked her quietly, hung up, and sat in silence. My instincts had been right. They lied. Again. By evening, Terrace and Denise returned with a few bags and a forced smile. I welcomed them warmly, cooked dinner, and even laughed with them. To anyone watching, it might have looked like forgiveness. But inside, I was taking notes, watching, listening, waiting. After dinner, I walked them to the guest room, the same one I used to prepare for friends. As Denise settled in, she smiled faintly and whispered, "Thank you. Rose, maybe this is our chance to fix things." I looked at her for a long moment, my expression unreadable. "Maybe," I said softly. "Maybe it is." But deep inside, my mind whispered a darker truth. This isn't healing, Denise. This is justice. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. The first night they stayed in my house, I barely slept. I could hear them whispering behind the closed guest room door, probably making plans, or maybe wondering if I truly believed their story. I let them think I did. The best revenge isn't loud, it's patient. The next morning, I prepared breakfast, pancakes, coffee, and the same jam Terrace used to love. The smell filled the kitchen, thick with memories of a life I once fought to keep. When they sat at the table, I smiled and said, "Eat up. You'll need energy for the week ahead." Terrace chuckled nervously. "You haven't changed." Rose, still the best cook. "Oh, I've changed," I replied lightly, cutting into my pancakes. "You'll see." After breakfast, I offered to drive Denise to the hospital for a checkup. She looked startled, then forced a smile. "Oh, it's fine, Rose. I already arranged it. No need to come." "Are you sure?" I asked gently. "I'd love to see your doctor. Maybe I can talk about the surgery details myself." She stammered, "He's, busy. But I'll give you the hospital details later." I nodded slowly, pretending to believe her. Inside, I knew she was bluffing. Later that day, I visited the hospital myself. I walked through the corridors quietly, my heart pounding with every step. When I reached the records desk, I asked again for Denise's file. The nurse looked up, typed for a while, and shook her head. "I told you yesterday, ma'am. There's nothing here." She was never treated by that doctor. I smiled politely and whispered, "Thank you." By the time I returned home, the mask I wore, calm, forgiving, kind, was slipping. I found them sitting on the couch, laughing at something on TV. Denise had her head on Terrace's shoulder, the same shoulder I once cried on. I stood there for a few seconds, just watching them. Then I said softly, "I spoke to your hospital today, Denise." Her laughter froze. What? The doctor you mentioned. The one who's supposed to perform your surgery. He's never treated you. In fact, he doesn't even know you. The room fell silent. Terrace looked confused. "Rose, what are you saying?" "I'm saying," I said coldly, "that you both came here to lie to me again. You wanted money. You thought my guilt would blind me. But not this time." Denise's face turned pale. "Rose, please." "No," I snapped, standing tall. "You betrayed me once. You destroyed my marriage, my peace, my home. And now you came back to steal the last thing I rebuilt. My dignity." Terrace tried to speak, but I raised a hand. "Don't. You had a choice that night, Terrace. You chose her. So now live with it." Denise began to cry, whispering apologies that fell flat against the walls. I turned away from them both, my heart calm, almost eerily calm. This time, I wasn't the broken woman who walked out of a hospital half alive on October 4th, a Thursday. This time I was the storm. And storms don't cry, they destroy. Denise sat there trembling, her hands shaking as tears ran down her face. Terrace looked lost, like a man who had suddenly realized the walls were closing in. But I didn't move toward them. I just stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the gray clouds outside roll over the city like heavy thoughts I had carried for years. "You came back here," I said quietly, "because you thought I'd still be the same weak woman you both left behind. But that Rose died in the hospital 5 years ago. The woman standing in front of you now doesn't forgive. She remembers." Denise tried to speak. "Rose, please, it wasn't just about the money. I was desperate. Desperate enough to betray your own sister?" I cut in sharply. "You slept with my husband, Denise. You took everything from me. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't even breathe without feeling that knife you both stuck in my back." Terrace ran a hand through his hair, his voice trembling. "We made mistakes, Rose. But people change. People like you don't change," I said coldly. "You just get better at pretending." Then I smiled faintly. "But that's okay. I've been pretending too." Terrace frowned. "What do you mean?" I turned toward the dining table where a stack of documents lay. "While you were both sleeping last night, I did a little digging. Remember the old house you sold? The one that was in my name before the divorce? The buyer backed out years ago. The property still legally belongs to me, which means you two have been living in my house for the past 3 years." Terrace's face went blank. "That's impossible." "Check the records if you don't believe me," I said, my voice steady. "You never transferred the deed properly. You thought I wouldn't notice because I was broken back then. But I rebuilt everything. Terrace, quietly, and I've been waiting for this moment." Denise's lips parted in shock. You knew?" "Oh, I knew everything," I said with a quiet laugh. "I knew about the bank accounts, the fake debt, even the lies you told Dad before he passed away. You thought you buried me with my heartbreak, but I was just learning how to fight." Terrace stood up suddenly. "So what now? You want revenge? Money to ruin us?" I looked him dead in the eye. "No, Terrace. I don't need to ruin you. You've already done that yourself. I just wanted you to see what it feels like to need help and find none." Denise sobbed. "Please, Rose, we have nowhere to go." I nodded slowly. "That's the thing about betrayal, Denise. Once you lose someone's trust, you lose their shelter too." I picked up my phone, dialed a number, and said, "Yes, officer. I'd like to report 2 trespassers on my property." Their faces went pale as they realized what was happening. As I hung up, I whispered to myself, "It's Thursday again." Poetic, isn't it? 5 years ago, I walked in on them and lost everything. Today, on another Thursday, I was finally free. The sound of sirens echoed faintly in the distance as I stood by the window, staring out at the rain beginning to fall. The same kind of rain that had poured on the night everything shattered. October 4th, a Thursday. Life had a strange way of circling back to its beginnings. Terrace's voice broke through the silence. "Rose, please, don't do this. You don't know what you're starting." I turned to him slowly. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm finishing." The police arrived a few minutes later. They knocked, and I opened the door calmly. "These two," I said, gesturing behind me, "broke into my home under false pretenses. They're not welcome here." The officers stepped inside, and for a moment, I saw the fear in Terrace's eyes. The same fear I once felt when he told me he was leaving. Denise tried to cling to me, sobbing, Please, Rose. We're family. I looked her in the eyes, my own sister, and said softly, You stopped being my family the day you chose to betray me. The officers escorted them outside. The door closed, and for the first time in years, my house was silent. No voices, no lies, just peace. I stood there for a long while, letting the silence sink in. I could still hear echoes of the past. Denise's laughter, Terrace's empty promises, the faint sound of a heart breaking in another lifetime. But this time, those echoes didn't hurt. They reminded me of how far I had come. Later that night, I sat by the fireplace with a cup of tea, recording my thoughts in the same journal I used during my recovery. My handwriting was steady now, my words confident. I wrote, Sometimes life breaks us so completely that we forget how to breathe. But those who hurt us never expect us to rise again, stronger, wiser and unshakable. They expect the broken version of us, not the reborn one. I closed the journal and smiled to myself. Terrace and Denise thought I'd forgive them. They thought guilt would make me weak, but they never understood. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's freedom. 5 years ago, I walked in on my husband and my sister in our bed. The woman I was back then died that night. 5 years later, they came back, begging for my help, thinking I would still be their savior. But I didn't save them, I saved myself. When people ask me if I regret anything, I tell them no, because every scar, every tear, every sleepless night made me who I am today. And today, I'm not just surviving, I'm finally living. So if you're listening to my story and you're in that dark place, wondering if you'll ever heal, you will. One day, you'll look back and thank life for breaking you, because it gave you the strength to rebuild yourself. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't destroying others. It's becoming everything they thought you'd never be. Thank you for listening to my story on Tales with Granny. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, share, and tell me in the comments